it actually feels just the opposite. It feels like your world is opening up. Like there's this whole other world that you didn't even see before that was right in front of your eyes, and oh my God, there's a bald eagle. I retired 5 years ago, and I've had a lot of surprises, but there are three that I've been thinking about lately, and they're not massive shockers like, oh my God, something went wrong, but they're surprises nonetheless, and I want to share them with you today. The first one is that when I retired, I think I really kind of felt like this was going to be the last big life change for me. This was going to be the last big shift of my life. And I think I thought that because my career was so important to me and took up so much time and energy in my life that stopping my career felt like, wow, this is really it, you know. Now, obviously, if I had thought a little bit more about it at the time, I would realize that that wasn't going to be true. But I've actually still really been surprised over these last 5 years how many other big life changes and shifts in who I am and how I identify myself have happened. And I'll give you some examples. The biggest shift, and the one that I could have seen coming, but wasn't sure if it was really going to ever happen, was becoming a grandmother. Now, I wasn't positive that I was going to be a grandmother. When I retired, I had two sons who were approaching 30. Neither of them really had significant others in their lives. And, you know, I didn't ever want to force parenthood on them just so that I could be a grandparent. Never in a million years would have said, well, when is it time to have these grandbabies? Because that's just the wrong reason for people to have kids, in my opinion. Anyway, so becoming a grandmother, they call me Gigi. Becoming a grandmother was a huge identity shift for me. And it was a great opportunity also to really think about what I wanted to be as a grandmother, how I wanted to show up, what I wanted to do for my grandchildren, really as an extension of my legacy. And so that was a huge one, and that happened almost 3 years ago now. So becoming a grandparent, huge life shift. You know, the other life shifts and identity shifts had to do with place. We started out our retirement living in Mexico, and for 2.5, 3 years, I identified as a nomad, kind of a vagabond. You know, we didn't really have a home, so to speak. We just were moving from place to place to place. And that in and of itself was a shift. But then also when we decided, when we had grandchildren, to relocate to where they were and get an apartment and sort of settle down a little bit, that was another big shift, a really big shift. And then as I really think about it, I realize that there are many, many, many other big life events and life changes and identity shifts that are going to happen. And those are going to revolve around some sadness, inevitably. You know, as we get older, we start losing people. Either my husband or I are going to go through losing a spouse, and those are going to be big shifts. Note to my past self, leaving your career is not the be-all, end-all. It's not the last big piece of your life. There are going to be many other things, my dear, that fundamentally change who you are in this world. So that was a big surprise. You know, more excitement to come. Just when you think you've got life sort of nailed down, plot twist, the universe has other ideas. The second surprise in retirement is, again, something I could have foreseen if I had thought about it. But it is that people who are not retired, people who are still working, their lives go on without you. The people that you used to work with, that you spent hours and hours and hours every day with, that you went through traumas with, that you went through so many challenges and victories with, are still working, and their lives go on without you. Now, don't think I'm like super self-centered thinking their lives were going to stop without me. But I think I just kind of imagined that those relationships would continue very easily, because the relationships at the time were very easy. We saw each other every day. We worked hard together and we really enjoyed each other. And it's not that those friendships came to an end cold turkey, but there's a fundamental difference in people's lives when you're working full time and when you're not. And even the people, not my coworkers, but family members and friends who continue to be in the workforce, the availability of time to spend with them isn't any more than when you were working. And for my husband and I, we were just about the first people that we knew to retire. We knew one other friend, but he lived in a different state. And, there's kind of nobody to play with when that happens. And so I actually wish I had made a little bit more of an effort in the beginning to connect with people who were already retired or about to, so that I could form those friendships and really sort of double down on those. The good news is 5 years on now, other people are starting to think about it. They're starting to plan for it. It's coming. We're starting to meet other people, and it's going to happen. Again, this isn't earth shattering. It's just sort of wow, okay, here I am, and just because my life has changed so much and I've got all this free time doesn't mean everybody else does. And the third big surprise, and this is one that's a little bit, I don't know, more existential, I guess, but it is the idea that I kind of thought that when I retired, my world would get smaller. And what I mean by that is that I thought that the mundane, everyday, day-to-day things, you get up, you do this, you do that, unless you're traveling somewhere spectacular or, doing really big things, the day-to-day life of retirement can seem a little slow, maybe a little mundane, especially if you're used to working really hard and long hours and such. So this is a lot harder to explain than I thought it would be. But I thought my world was going to get smaller, and that was going to feel smaller. And what I'm realizing now that I've had time to decompress and relax and shift and really settle into it, things like watching the birds in the feeder outside of your living room seems like a very small activity. But if you're really focusing on it and you're really getting into it, it doesn't feel small. It actually feels just the opposite. It feels like your world is opening up. Like there's this whole other world that you didn't even see before that was right in front of your eyes, and oh my God, there's a bald eagle. God, I love living here. Anyway, I wish I was acting fast enough for you to see that. But the world, that when it seems like these very small activities are just sort of ho-hum or commonplace, if you're in them fully, if you're really paying attention fully, it actually feels just the opposite. It feels like, wow, there's this whole world of birds out there that I had never even thought of. Now, look at what they're doing. Look, what's that behavior about? What do those birds like to eat? Do those come up? Are those here all year, or are they just migrating? Like, there's just all kinds of questions. Now, the bird watching is just an example, but anything, really anything, it might be the, books that you're reading, and instead of, reading a book and saying, well, that was fun, and setting it down and moving on to the next one, you have some extra time. And so you can say, gosh, I wonder what this author's background is, or I wonder if this author has more books that I can read, and I wonder how they research that, or and I didn't, historical fiction, I didn't know that happened. What I'm going to go learn more about that. Like, it's actually your world opening up and not getting smaller. And that was a real surprise to me as I started really delving into some of the more day-to-day activities. I was really surprised how large my life started to feel instead of getting smaller. Does that make sense? I it's just, I think that was my biggest surprise. I really, really miscalculated that one. And what a pleasant surprise. What an absolutely wonderful surprise. And I know that not everybody is fortunate enough to be able to retire at all for some people, or to retire early like I did in my 50s. But if you are able, and if you are thinking about it and you're worried about your world getting small, I'm here to share my experience with you that that's actually not the case. At least it wasn't for me. And I'm curious, what surprises, if you're retired already, what surprises did you face? What's been your experience? I'd love to hear from you. I appreciate you being here, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Ooh, sorry, I'm looking at this gorgeous bird. What is that? Oh, it's beautiful. I'm not sure what that is. I'm going to have to figure, oh my gosh, it's got orange in it. Anyway, welcome to the Retired Life of Birdwatching.